Ammo shelves across America are being cleared of a caliber most shooters ignored just 3 years ago. By 2025, 6mm ARC has gone from boutique curiosity to mainstream obsession, shaking up everything from precision matches to predator hunts. But what makes this oddball round suddenly the smartest upgrade you can make for your AR? In this video, we'll talk about how the 6mm ARC bridged the gap between 5.56 and 308, landed a serious contract with Special Forces, and kicked off a flood of innovation in both rifles and ammo. We're not talking theories here. This round is hitting steel farther, tracking better in wind, and knocking varmints flatter than its competition. Add the fact that ammo is still reasonably priced, and even cheaper for reloaders, and you can see why 6mm ARC is quietly becoming the most dominant cartridge in the U.S. gun market right now. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Power users of the AR platform have chased the mythical middle ground between 5.56 and 308 for decades, and by 2025, that search has finally paid off. The 6mm ARC brings serious reach and retained energy to a rifle that still weighs and recoils like the carbine you already know. In the special operations world, that extra reach was the whole point. Operators complained that M855A1 couldn't solve problems past 3 football fields, while the heavier 7.62 rifles and magazines slowed them to a crawl on long infills. SOCOM's engineers asked Hornady for a cartridge that would stay supersonic beyond half a mile and still fit Stanag dimensions. Hornady necked the 6.5 Grendel down, shortened the body a hair to free powder room for sleek .243 diameter projectiles, and the ARC was born. It left the lab with G1 ballistic coefficients nudging .530 and a 108 grain ELDM pushed from an 18-inch GFR barrel stays above that all-important 1,800 feet per second threshold to roughly 590 yards, about 45% farther than a 123 grain Grendel from the same barrel. That combination rewrote engagement envelopes, turning what were once harassment distances into confident first-round hits. SOCOM fielded the new round only after hammering Geissele's Freedom rifle through a 50,000-round torture schedule per sample. Geissele responded with an overbuilt Carpenter 158 plus bolt that forgives the larger casehead, a riveted steel cam race insert, and a 3-port phased array gas system. Instead of one violent slap of gas, the bolt unlocks, accelerates, then coasts to the rear in 3 neat pushes that feel more like a .22 Magnum autoloader than a battle rifle. The resulting 18-inch Maritime Recce model now shows up on the civilian market around $3,400 for Luna Black finish or $3,650 in DDC when stock trickles past military demand. Owners who run a suppressor tell me they can tune it soft enough to see trace all the way into steel, yet it still devours filthy steel-cased drills without short stroking. That military provenance matters because the civilian side wastes no time turning battlefield solutions into range day obsessions. Precision Rifle Series gas gun shooters chased .243 class win numbers for years, hand-loading freak wildcats like 6 Dasher, then accepted the barrel life penalty. The ARC arrives with factory ammunition already kissing that performance window, and the evidence lives on paper. A Secon's 20-inch ARC puts Hornady's 108 grain load into 5-shot clusters that hover just under 0.8 of an inch at 100 yards, while a 16-inch Wilson Combat still holds 3/4-minute groups with the same ammo, showing only a 100 foot-per-second loss for 4 inches of barrel. Recoil stays low enough that shooters can call their own impacts whether they bench off bags or run barricades. Add the fact that Hornady Match sells for about $26 per 20-round box while remaining supersonic past 1,300 yards, and the precision crowd begins to question why they ever tolerated finicky wildcats. Hunters watch these developments with mixed excitement. The first factory loads, 108 grain ELDM and 105 grain BTHP, were designed for paper, not pelts. One Idaho coyote hunter learned that the hard way when the BTHP blew apart on the shoulder bone, dropping dogs that still managed to spin and vanish into the sage. He yanked the match bullets, kept the brass, and stuffed Nosler's 70-grain ballistic tips over compressed charges that chronographed at 3,000 to 230 feet per second. That change flipped his recovery rate to a clean 100%. Prairie dog shooters in Wyoming noticed, too. In gusty Platte County winds, the ARC's heavier 105-grain slugs needed barely half the wind hold of a 69-grain Valkyrie, smacking rodents at 464 steps while the lighter pills drifted off fur. The payoff was obvious, except the prairie dogs failed to provide the cinematic acrobatics varminters crave because match jackets don't grenade. When the same shooter switched to the 103-grain ELDX hunting load, about 2,500 feet per second from that 20-inch barrel, terminal drama improved, yet the community still clamors for an 87-grain VMAX. Hornady, if you're listening, you already offer that bullet. Stuff it in a shiny red box and watch shelves clear. Component supply plays into that impatience. Bulk shooters can rip through 2,000 rounds in a rock chuck season, so brass matters. Hornady's 50-count bags list around $45 to $50 when you can snag them, but the pipeline remains inconsistent, forcing many to cannibalize factory ammo, even with brass in hand. The small rifle primer pocket helps keep pressures sane inside AR bolts, extending case life, and the modest 52,000 psi gas gun ceiling preserves barrels nearly as long as .308. Handloaders pushing ARC into bolt rifles flirt with 62,000 psi and kiss 2,900 feet per second from a 24-inch tube, but the smart crowd keeps magazine length and throat constraints in view. A Ruger American Gen 2 Predator in 6 ARC retails for $599 to $729 depending on sale days, holds 10 rounds in an AR-style mag, and delivers sub-minute groups straight from the rack, making it the cheapest doorway into long-range steel you'll find at any big-box counter. The cartridge's practicality really sinks in when dollars per trigger pull enter the conversation. Cases of 5.56 still run about $11 per 20 when bought by the case, which is hard to beat. But the 6 ARC's $1.30 per shot doesn't look bad once you factor fewer rounds needed for first shot hits and the cartridge's ability to punch well above its weight on medium game. Pay particular attention to magazine weight. 20 rounds of 5.56 tips the scale at roughly 13 grams each, while a full ARC magazine totals under 18 grams per round. Compare that to 26 grams for a .308, and you start to appreciate why SOCOM never looked back after ditching the heavier rifles. Reliability often derails Wildcat success stories, but Geissele and SOCOM killed that objection with purpose-built magazines. Stainless bodies, nitride finish, and geometry that favors the ARC shoulder mean the follower presents each round at exactly the same angle every time. A small steel nub embedded in the trigger guard keeps the magazine indexed so feed lips can live their best life. And those mags now ship in 15, 20, and 30-round capacities. The difference shows up during high-volume strings where legacy Grendel magazines tend to nosedive the third or fourth cartridge. Field reports from the testing trailers said the Geissele pattern ran through thousands of rounds without a single bolt-over or double feed. The SOCOM logbook doesn't let small issues slide, so that track record moves a lot of skeptics. Gas management was another puzzle that needed solving. Standard mid-length and rifle-length ports worked fine, but they came with the usual seesaw between overgassed unsuppressed cycling and sluggish suppressed function. The phased array system sidesteps that fight. 3 modest ports rather than 1 giant hole give the carrier 3 gentle shoves instead of 1 sucker punch. Suppressor users experience less gas in the face, and recoil impulse feels flatter. That system is now standard on the Maritime Recce and the 15-inch GFR Recce barrels coming later this year. Early civilian owners have already started logging match wins at gas gun events by capitalizing on the minimal muzzle jump. A shorter 16-inch Recce is expected to hit shelves midsummer, and a 14.5 pinned length aims to please patrol officers wanting maximum maneuverability without NFA paperwork. While the Geissele dominates the premium slot, budget builders haven't been idle. CMMG's 16-inch Resolute in ARC shows up online around $1349, and PSA offers barreled uppers close to $549 when sales hit. Stack those on top of a lower you already own, and you're shooting. Magazines remain the one part to choose carefully. The Geissele pattern is the gold standard, but Elander's 24-round steel body or the latest Duramag stainless pattern feed reliably in most guns once springs take a set. Even legacy Grendel mags can cooperate when you polish the inside welds and replace followers with ARC-specific versions. Long-range tinkerers will appreciate that the ARC shares bullet diameters with evergreen cartridges like .243 Winchester and 6 Creedmoor. Your favorite 105 hybrid or 110 A-tip will seat just fine if you mind the base to ogive distance and keep overall length under 2.260. The smaller powder column asks for fast meters like lever revolution or CFE223, delivering single-digit standard deviations without burning barrels to toast. At gas gun pressure, you'll hover around 2650 feet per second from 18 inches with a 108, while an identical load in a bolt action surpasses 2850 feet per second, placing it on the heels of a 243 but with 25% less recoil thanks to the smaller casehead. Critics sometimes fixate on velocity loss in short barrels, noting the ARC surrenders roughly 100 feet per second for every 4 inches removed. True enough, yet even a 12-inch pistol keeps a 105-grain bullet supersonic past 500 yards, a distance where many PDW rounds have already tumbled subsonic. For hog hunters who ride side-by-sides and prefer braced pistols or factory SBRs, that trade-off is worth the energy retained on target. The final piece of the puzzle is economy. Match ammunition pushing 108-grain ELDM lists at $27.95 on common retailers, but bulk buy incentives shave that below $1.20 per shot when you spring for 200-round cases. Reloaders recover costs quickly. A charge of lever evolution, a small rifle primer, and a 108-grain match bullet brings hand-loaded price down to roughly 65 cents. Not far from bargain 6.5 Creedmoor steel and nowhere near the 6.5's wear on your shoulder or wallet. Those numbers make weekly club matches approachable, while still granting a cartridge that can ethically topple antelope at 300 yards and deer at 4. Provided shot placement is right. Manufacturers are obviously betting on continued momentum. Ruger's bolt rifle shows they believe hunters want an American-made field gun that accepts AR magazines. CMMG, Aero Precision, and Odinworks now list ARC barrels in 16, 18, and 20-inch lengths, with complete uppers hovering in the $600 range. The aftermarket has followed with dies, headspace gauges, and even bushing-style sizing dies for precision folks chasing perfect neck tension. The component flood feels a lot like the early Creedmoor days, only this time the launch pad is a lightweight 15-inch rifle rather than a long-action hunting gun. The story returns to the firing line, where benefits become tactile. Picture a steel silhouette 500 yards downrange. With 5.56, you dial or hold 24 to 26 inches of drop and nearly a full-value wind drift in a brisk 10-mile-per-hour cross. That practice session, choose a box per string. Shift to 6 ARC. Drop, required hold to around 16 inches. Cut wind to a hand's width, and watch the orange splash behind the plate tell you exactly where the miss went. You send fewer follow-ups, learn more from each trigger press, and carry half the recoil of a 308 while doing it. Price gains for ammunition reflect that efficiency. A session that once meant $7 of 5.56 now costs $13 in ARC. Yet you used half as many rounds, walked less steel, and your shoulder doesn't remind you of the day after. Factor in the round's versatility, varmints, predators, deer, and precision matches, and that cost curve bends further in ARC's favor. Legislative rumblings always lurk when a caliber gains traction. Yet the ARC enjoys a fortunate loophole. It slips beneath proposed energy thresholds that threaten traditional .30 caliber centerfires, but it also punches too hard to trigger assault pistol language aimed at 5.56. That clever middle path means owners upgrade capability without painting a bigger target on their backs during the next round of political grandstanding. For the preparedness-minded, that balance is priceless. In the retailer world, shelves talk. Hornadi's ARC boxes used to collect dust beside oddities like 204 Ruger. Now shipments vanish within days. Even during periodic panic buying, distributors manage to source 6mm ARC because production volumes remain below older staples, letting it sidestep surges that strip 9mm pallets bare. A private sector DMR shooter can walk out with a 100-round case for $130 and a grin, while buddies with 308 pay double for match grade and haul out heavier gear to boot. Geissele's civilian backlog proves the market wants rifles purpose-built for the caliber rather than retrofitted compromises. Add the upcoming 20-inch Stratomatch model wearing heavier contour steel, and PRS competitors are lining up. Rumor from the factory floor says the beam weight of that barrel still leaves an overall package lighter than a gas gun 308 by nearly 2 pounds. The only hurdle left for mass adoption is convincing ammunition manufacturers that the varmint crowd counts, and brass must flow like coffee at a truck stop. Once Hornadi's presses churn out 87-grain VMAX loads, and pallets of ARC-stamped brass hit wholesale. Watch volume shooters migrate in droves. When they do, economies of scale will drag price per box closer to $20, and the cartridge becomes the first truly universal AR round, cheap enough for plinking, accurate enough for matches, and lethal enough for freezer duty. But what do you think? Does the 6mm ARC deserve its spot at the top in 2025? Would you ditch your 6.5 Grendel or 308 for it? Let us know in the comments. Tap that like button. Share this video with your range buddies. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss what's next.